This is the very first episode of the Sean Svine Show. I'm a big believer anytime you get the chance to ask questions to a high performer, you should. So I created this podcast to talk to some of the highest performing eBay, Whatnot, Mercari, Poshmark online sellers in the world. My very first guest is Flip Fusion. I hope you enjoy this interview. And if you like it, please like and subscribe to this podcast. It'd help me out a ton. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the show.
Sean's Fine Show. Sean's Fine Show. Digging deep and making dough. From thrift store gold to eBay flips. He teach fire Tims and killer tips. Buy or sell us, wheel and deal. Real stories. Keep it real. Snack a bargain. Flip it fast. Sean's Fine Show.
I'm here with Flip Fusion. A lot of you guys know him from Facebook. I just want to start from the beginning. I've seen you post about going to college several times on Facebook.
Yep.
And obviously you're not using whatever you went to college for
No,
because you're selling on eBay. What'd you go to college for?
I went to college for outdoor recreation. My original plans were to become a game warden, but that changed pretty quickly. I realized that I didn't want to give people tickets, and that a big one was that the pay was not what I was hoping for. I think at the time, to be a game warden, it was like the pay was $28,000 a year, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. So, I'm glad I went away from that.
Actually, I got a really similar story. A lot of people don't know this. When I was 21, I was a reserve sheriff deputy in my county for 1 year.
Oh, really?
And this was back in probably like 2008 because I just turned 21 and they wouldn't let you be a sheriff deputy in my county until you were 21. And the starting pay for a sheriff deputy, if I got on full time, was 28 grand actually.
That's wild. Yeah, I don't know how they do it. I could never sign up for a job at that type of pay.
I actually give my wife a hard time because my wife is a third grade school teacher. And I'm sure you've heard other teachers complain about how much they make. And I
Yep.
always give her a hard time. I'm like, you went to college specifically to be a school teacher. Did you not look up what teachers made before you went to college to be one? Like, you knew what you were getting into. Why'd you go to college to be a school teacher if you knew what they made? Like,
Kind of wild. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
understand it.
I don't think it's as bad. I'm like, you get the summer off and all those breaks, like, it evens out. But
Yeah, that's true.
so did you actually, like a lot of resellers have a story about how they worked a regular job and then worked kind of a part-time and then broke away from, like, especially the full-time resellers, and then broke away from a full-time job. Did you ever have a full-time job after college that you kind of did for a little while before you became an eBay seller? Or
So my story is a little different. I never really had that full-time job. The longest that I've ever worked for a company continuously was 9 months. I worked for a Walmart distribution center, and that was directly after high school, actually. And I liked that job, but then I went to college after that. And during the summers, I worked for the city of Aspen as a like kind of a parks maintenance person. And I did that for a couple summers, and then directly out of college is when I decided to do this full time.
so you didn't even have a horrible job in the past that scared you away from it. You've been doing this from day one.
And
That's
the two
kind of
jobs that I actually loved, so my story is completely different than everybody else.
That's kind of funny. You went to school to be a parks officer, and I was a
Mhm.
reserve sheriff deputy. And then you said you worked at Walmart distribution center.
Yep.
I went to college for a semester and a half, so I didn't make it through. But one of like the little part-time jobs I did while I was in college, I actually worked at like just a Walmart store, and I only did it for like 2 or 3 weeks. I was 18 and didn't have my shit together at all, and a bunch of my friends were going sledding at the golf course and bought one of those big semi truck inner tubes, and I quit quit Walmart to go sledding with my friends. So we know what you sell now, but what were you selling there at the beginning?
I sold I sold a lot of like general household stuff. What I kind of got started with was fishing lures. I think there was a True Value in the town that I lived in that was closing, and I was young. I think this was when I was like 14 years old. But I went to the fishing section, and I was seeing a lot of the fishing lures that I use that were $5 and $6 a piece were now like 50 cents a piece and $1 each. And I learned at a young age that I could sell those for close to retail, and that's kind of what got me started. But yeah, I kind of started with everything else that most people do, the stuff that's laying around your house, realizing that people will buy that stuff.
Did you, I know you live in South Carolina now. Did you live out west at one time, or did you go out there just for school purposes?
No, I lived out west. I was born and raised in Nebraska, but I lived in Colorado for probably 5 or 6 years. So yeah, I've spent a lot of my life out west, and I actually started this business when I lived in Oklahoma. So I spent about half my life out west, or even longer than that.
What got you out to South Carolina?
My wife's job, she first got a job with Michelin, the tire company in Oklahoma, and then she ended up getting a job out here, and now she ended up quitting that job. So now we're just out in South Carolina because we like it here.
Nice. So you just started just flipping fishing lures. Were you ever like a lot of people in the reselling do the yard selling, thrift store find. Thrift store shopping, did you ever go through that phase, or were you always just like liquidation and auctions and
No, I honestly, I never did the thrift store. It was my dad was always big into auctions, even when I was young. So that's when I first kind of started doing this was through auctions. I think one of the first ones that I ever did was it was a go-kart. There was a go-kart store that sold a lot of parts, and they went out of business, and I was that's kind of where I started was, or that's when I learned the auction world was at that go-kart facility. But no, I've never done the thrift store thing, and I've tried it a couple times, but it's frustrating for me, and I just don't see enough money there. A lot of credit to the people that can make that work though, because that seems hard for me.
you think you figured out the trick real young? Because I think a lot of people get caught in that thrift store trap. And me personally, like I like to go into them for like fun, but I have very low expectations when I go into one. Like if I go into one, if I find something fun, but I'm really not, I don't have the expectations of making any kind of dent or impact in my business by going in a thrift store. And it seems like you figured it out real early that driving from thrift store to thrift store, you really can't scale to a scalable full size, full time size. I don't think if you're just utilizing the thrift stores, unless you're in certain niches, like there's people like in the clothing world that can, because most thrift stores are 75-80% closed already. But if you're
Exactly.
not in the clothing game, I personally don't think you can get to that full-time level by just using thrift stores. And I think you figured that out pretty early.
No, it's yeah, you walk into one, it's 90% clothing, and you would have to find a way to do clothing like Cougar's Corner does. They're
Yes,
fan.
yes, that's one example I think of as someone who's crushing it full time by using, I believe, mainly thrift stores. I don't know all their sources, but you can go to a thrift store and do a clothing style. But if you're going to sell anything else, I think you're going to have to scale using auctions or buyouts and stuff. And it seems like you figured that out super, super
It's a
early.
I would say it's a great place to start though, because almost everybody has a thrift store in their town. And if you want to just learn how to do it, I would highly recommend the Salvation Army or a Goodwill, just because they're gonna have stuff that you can make money on.
Absolutely. Especially if you're not wanting to scale to full time and you're just wanting some extra money for vacations or just to make ends meet or pay a car payment or something. You can definitely do it. I'm just meant like if you want to take it to the next level. I think
Yeah,
it's hard to do it the thrift store
yeah,
way.
I agree.
Like, so you mentioned the fishing lures. Is there something that really like at a young age that you flipped that you remember that like got you hooked and realized like, wow, this is what I'm going to do forever?
Yeah, actually, when I'm gonna try to keep this short, but when I was 15, I wanted to do some fishing tournaments that were expensive, and my dad owned a bar, and he had this big Budweiser Clydesdale, and it was huge, and he said, "You can have it if you sell it. That will help pay for your fishing tournaments," and I think I got at the time like $600 for it, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really know how to ship things. I actually ended up using like pillows that were in the closet to try to pad that thing, and it did end up getting broken because it has a big glass sphere around it. But when I realized that just this thing that he had sitting in his bar was worth over $600 and it could pay for my fishing tournaments, is when I realized, yeah, I can start doing this because, that's a lot of money for one, but obviously it's hard to find $600 items like that. But, as you scale, you can find more and more of that. But that one really sticks out to me as one that's kind of memorable.
So you learned 2 lessons there. You learned one that your stuff out there that you could make a big chunk, and then you learned a giant shipping lesson, which, we've all learned those big giant shipping lessons. I still have the occasional one that gets broke, even though I think it's good to go, and still learn lessons about shipping. So
Well,
I
wait,
think your dad.
I did win
Say,
a claim on one because they said that there was sufficient packaging. I think they saw that there was multiple pillows in there, which I think they appreciated. But yeah, I did got to keep my money on that one.
wow, because most of the time I don't even waste my time making claims for broken stuff anymore because you win them if they're lost pretty easily. If they can prove that the tracking never, if it was never delivered, you win those pretty easily, but you never win those damaged claims. So
No, not too
I,
often.
I think your dad uses the same trick. He used the same trick on you that I use on my wife, getting you to like sell something for something you want. My wife, she's supportive in what I do, but she doesn't want any part of it. She like she thinks like I've taken her to the bins, which I go to the bins for fun every once in a while. She thinks that's disgusting. She's like, don't bring that stuff into my house. But when she's on summer break, I do convince her to go help me set up at the flea market. Like if we're going to go do a swap meet, because I use well, like set up flea markets to liquidate a bunch of stuff that just not worth my time listing on eBay. And I
Yeah.
could tell her she comes and helps. We have a envelope earmarked for like vacation funds, and she does like going on vacation. So any money we make while we're set up at the flea market, if she goes and helps, I let her stick in that vacation envelope. So she's gonna go help me set up tomorrow at a flea market. So
Yes.
you're up.
Yeah, my wife was kind of the same way but when she had a full-time job, she wanted nothing to do with this. She didn't want to go to the auctions. She didn't want to list things, but now that she's quit her job, she's definitely more involved with it, and that's nice.
I keep trying to get my wife. I'm like, your pension's locked in at school. Come work with me. We'll make more money. But she doesn't want no part of it. So I'm not gonna. She likes teaching, so I'm gonna let her teach. So
And that's fully understandable. I mean, a
yeah.
lot of people don't enjoy it like we do.
No, no, and you can't force it on somebody, so when did you make the switch? Because now you're primarily like, your primary thing is industrial items. I know you do a little bit of other stuff, but seems like the majority of your stuff is from industrial auctions and closeouts. When did you make the switch to that niche over just selling whatever you get your hands on?
I think it was when I kind of wanted to start making more money was when I was, doing the yard sales and even estate sales and even estate auctions. And I just realized that there's not enough money at those places. Even an estate auction, for example, if you were to go to a typical estate auction, people don't have enough money within the stuff that you can ship online. If you were to buy everything that was there at a decent price, there's still not enough stuff, because a lot of the value is in furniture, and they're going to have trinkets and stuff, but um, running around and trying to buy everything at these estate auctions, it got exhausting. And I was like, I need to find more money. And that's when I started to lean more towards industrial and manufacturing, because you start looking at the value inside of those buildings, and it's typically in the millions, where the value inside of people's trinkets and stuff like that is usually in the thousands. So yeah, I had to make that switch to make more money.
I tip to people watching this, if you do like the estate auctions, you're better off going to the estate auction if it's a guy who passed away versus a woman who passed away. Most of the time, I've noticed if it's a woman who's passed away, there's a lot of trinkets and knickknacks and stuff like that where it's really hard for it to add up, like you said. Sometimes if you get like the right guy, the barn's full of tools or car parts or motorcycle parts, a man's man who like worked on cars all his life or something like that, those can be pretty profitable. But I've noticed that if it's a woman's estate, it has it's a hard time adding up because the stuff that they were into in the 80s and 90s that they collected have died, like Longaberger baskets and Boyd's Bears and those kind of items. It just seems like the men's items, even if they're older, still hold some value. Like I've had a lot of luck selling like old broken chainsaws and craftsman tools that they had back in the 70s and 80s. But I've noticed with women's estate sales, there's just not enough items there to make it worth your time spending an afternoon at an auction.
Yeah. And I think in general, men collect things more than women do. And once they start collecting, they get a lot more serious about it than women. I mean, that's not always the case, but that's kind of what I've seen.
You see the trend a lot in the toy world too. Men are more likely to go buy their old toys and collect. Like, there's guys my age who are in the Ninja Turtles, and then you see guys now buying Ninja Turtles, but you don't see a lot of women going and buying whatever they were, whatever they were in at that age. There's some, and I know there's exceptions, but there's more men who go and buy their old school stuff more than women do. You have over $1 million worth of eBay inventory listed, which is an insane number compared to, you see other big sellers online. Most don't have over $1 million listed. And you listed most of that, I'm assuming, by yourself. And I don't know about you, but I get a lot of people claiming that they don't believe me when I say I do what I do by myself. Do you encounter any of that? Like people not believing that you have $1 million worth of listed inventory and you're putting up the numbers that you do by yourself?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say so. I think most people believe it just because I think they can see it within the videos. But then I don't know. Also, the sales, like to do 30,000 a month, like that's got to come from somewhere. Um, but to be honest, a lot of that value is in multi-quantity stuff. It's incredibly hard to get to $1 million worth of inventory when you're just listing individual items. So to be honest, almost half of that is sunk in those SK tools where I think there's like 30 or 40,000 individual pieces of SK tools. So it only took a couple weeks to list all of that just because there weren't that many different products. So really, for anybody listening, like $1 million worth of listed inventory, it's not that much. It's just not.
You do have a lot of multi quantities, and I don't know if I don't know if it would be possible for a single person listing individual items to get to $1 million worth of inventory listed unless it was just a lot of really slow moving stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have a style which is with your listing that's kind of, I wouldn't say controversial. It's just kind of against the grain. Like you're not a daily lister. And I personally preach daily listing, and I know there's a lot of other people who preach daily listing and consistency. What do you think you do different that kind of overcomes some of that?
I think really it boils down to the multi-quantity listings that are where like the bubble pillows that I just picked up a couple weeks ago. I think I ended up only doing like 8 or 10 listings out of those, but I think it got close to $30,000 worth of value. So each one of those listings is thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, that's not necessarily the best strategy, but that's how I've gotten away from having to list 40 or 50 items a day, but also keep that value up.
It's true. Like you made 8 listings. and that's pretty close to what my monthly listing total is, and you did it in 8 listings. So some of those strategies has helped you overcome what like a lot of gurus, say that you can't do it with daily listings. And so with your strategy of going and buying multi quantities of high dollar items, you're able to take a couple days off here and there and just focus on fishing and wh- whatever you do in your free time when you're listing 30,000 in a day. And
I mean, honestly, though, if I want to continue growing, though, you still need to list every day because I've still got piles of unlisted inventory that needs to get listed if it's going to sell. So, um, I've sort of seen a plateau throughout this year. I mean, every month has kind of been around that 30,000 mark, and I think that yeah, I do need to get back to listing every day. So I wouldn't fully recommend that.
much unlisted inventory do you think you probably have?
There's a lot. There's probably there's at least $100,000 worth of stuff. It's mostly within new machine tooling, which is it's tedious to list, but they're good, consistent sellers. So I started kind of getting back on that yesterday. But I mean, there could be 2 or 300,000 worth just because I've got so much stuff laying around.
It's it is tedious. I bought a big 5-gallon bucket full of drill bits and stuff that were more of the machining tool grade and not your typical hardware store. And a lot of that stuff isn't even on eBay
Hmm.
when I go. And then sometimes there's like 8 different numbers on the on the dang thing, and you don't know. It isn't like it's black and white where it says model number this, so you're typing in 4 or 5 different numbers trying to figure out, and then you figure it out, and this isn't even on eBay. So then you start typing those numbers in Google, and then you see insane prices on some of these like websites like Radwell Industry. I'm sure you're familiar with them and stuff. But then you look at some of those websites and like look on eBay of other stuff that they do have listed and the price is way different. So trying to figure out a eBay price versus what's showing up on some of these websites, how do you tackle some of that?
It's that just took years and years of practice because I was in the same boat as you. Like I remember your little bucket full of those like carbide
Yeah.
insert and end
Most of them are
mills.
still in that bucket.
And like you said, when you pick up when you pick up the packaging, yeah, like it doesn't say this is the part number and this is the grade and this is the size. It doesn't do that. You have to learn that over time. But yeah, a lot of it is just jotting in the numbers and trying to figure out which part number or which number actually means something, and which one is just a serial number that means absolutely nothing. But boy, machine tooling is some of the most frustrating stuff that you can possibly. I would suggest never starting with that stuff because it will drive you insane.
I kind of noticed that a little bit, especially when at one point I had some employees who worked for me a couple years ago, and I had to teach them how to list on eBay. And I found it easier. Like I couldn't give them that bucket of machining tools because even with my years and years and years of experience, it's a little slow moving for me to list them. So I couldn't imagine like a brand new person trying to just jump into what you're trying to sell and having any kind of success because how hard the stuff typically is to list for a newbie. So I kind
Yes.
of laugh anytime you post like your big scores. You'll go to an auction, and it's not uncommon for you to go to an auction and spend $10,000, $15,000 and have a video of you just unloading pallets with your skid steer. And then your comment sections are full of guys who are in your niche being like, "You're giving up our secrets. You're giving up our secrets." But the average thrift store yard sale picker is not going to be able to do what you do without years of practice because of just what I described, how difficult some of the stuff is to list. Some of it pops right up. Some of it, it won't pop up, but one digit off will pop up and you can't find it anywhere. So like Me personally, I price it just based off what the one that's kind of close to it, and I could be pricing it way under, or I could be way over the price. And if I'm way over the price, it's never going to sell. If it's way under the price, I'm sold it too cheap and I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. So it's kind of a hard thing to navigate. And I always just find it humorous when guys think that you're giving away all the secrets. And I'm like, the average lady going to the bins buying Lululemon stuff is not going to be able to figure this out. And time they do figure it out, they're going to lose so much revenue by not listing their Lululemon stuff trying to figure this out. I just don't think you're giving up any major secrets that's going to move the needle anyway, left or right.
I don't think so either. And I even have a good friend that's in the machining industry, and he wanted to give the reselling a try. And he struggled mightily with it because there's a lot of slang terms within the machining world for some of this tooling. And so when he went to list it, he was using the improper terms to get the stuff sold. And so, yeah, yeah, he's still working a full-time job. His plan was to do this full time. So even somebody that knows what the stuff is might still struggle with it. It's that hard.
I struggle with it, and I kind of had my toes in the water for a long time. I actually have a cousin and her husband selling the exact same niche you do. They're in Vermont, and they go up and down the East Coast and buy, and they're in the situation that you're in where they way overbuy and they can't get it all listed. So there for a while, they were actually palletizing pallets up and shipping them to me, and I was listing the stuff on a split with them. So I'm not like 100% green to the game because I've been listing their stuff on and off for a couple years. I actually have a big giant corner of the shop just full of their stuff that I haven't touched in months that I kind of need to chip away at, but it's can be difficult to find. And then you'll spend all this time looking up one little piece, and it's not all worth the money. You'll I'll be looking this one piece up and I'll spend 10 minutes looking it up and it'll be like a $8 piece. And I'm like, well, I'm not listing this. And I throw in a pile. And unfortunately for them, I got a couple totes of stuff that I've looked up and I'm like, well, I'm not listing this for them. But I'm sure they don't want to pay to have it palleted up and shipped back to them. So we'll have to figure out how we're going to handle that. But like I said, I
You
don't
touched
think you're
you
giving up
touched
any
on
secrets that's going to create too much competition for you.
No, you mentioned it a little bit ago too about how you'll look the stuff on like Granger or MSC or Radwell, and it'll come up with the retail price of like I looked at one yesterday, it was $330, and I knew for a fact and it was brand new, just like it would be on Radwell, that it wouldn't sell for anywhere close to that. I mean, your typical person would list it for $299, will never sell. I listed it for $100, and I actually think that that might be too high based off of that type of item and what I've sold them for in the past. It might actually only be worth like $60 or $70, even though the retail's around 300.
Bought that big load of HVAC parts, and some of that is popping up on Granger for insane amount of money. And then a lot of that is on eBay though, so it's easy to find. And sometimes the eBay price is less than half of like the Granger price. Sometimes it's even like a quarter of the Granger price. And I think a lot of new people are going to get sucked into seeing that Granger price, but what they don't understand is a lot of big businesses have Granger accounts where somebody who has purchasing power can order one, and then they can send a guy in the field in a van to go pick it up at the Granger store, real convenient. And it's just easy for big companies to buy parts from them without giving the guy in the field access to funds to like a company card to go buy it. So they're willing to overpay for the convenience of just swinging by the Granger store and picking it up on the way to a job. So I think that
Exactly.
can get a lot of new people trying to get into your niche. You talked about growth earlier and how you've kind of plateaued. What's your plans to get over that plateau? Or are you just happy where you're at?
I mean, I do want to continue growing. I'm at a comfortable point though, where it's enough money that I'm still putting money away. But what and until I start listing more consistently, I need to bring in more of those loads where it's multi quantity, where I'm bringing in $100,000 or $200,000 at a time. And to be honest, even that's even hard to do at an industrial auction. It's hard to come home with $200,000 or $300,000 worth of stuff. So I think I'm going to try to maybe transfer more to the liquidation type sales, kind of like that QVC stuff that I ended up with, where it's all new merchandise, just because it's so easy to list. You'll get 40 or 50 of the same item. You just have to do one listing for that item, and it's the value of that listing is often $4 or $5,000. Now these are hard to find, but I feel like I need to start listing $1 million worth of stuff a year. And I'm looking at my board right now, and I'm only at like $260,000 worth of stuff that I've listed this year, and the year is half over. So I wouldn't even be close to $1 million, and I've done quite a bit of work this year to get to that number, but I need more new stuff where it's multiple quantities. And so I think I'm going to have to go back to the liquidations, which are a little bit tricky and they're not as consistent as auctions. So
I know, like, you spent like 15, 16 grand on that QVC lot. And for the people listening, he bought a ginormous multi-pallet lot of QVC. Like, right after Christmas, they got rid of a lot of like higher end Christmas decorations, like Mr. Christmas and stuff that has a pretty good retail number. And then you bought it to get it at a good deal, you buy it at the worst time of the year because you bought it right after Christmas. So nobody's buying. I'm not going to say nobody, but it doesn't move in that time of year like it does in October and November and early December. So you're putting out a lot of money to get inventory like that you're going to have to sit on for 9, 10 months before you may even see the break even amount. So do you see that in a lot of the liquidation sales that you're in or you're looking at, that maybe it's going to be stuff that your break even point's going to be way down the line because they liquidate it after the season is over? Is that something you see a lot?
not always. Sometimes those sales hit at a perfect time. 'Cause that same QVC sale also had a bunch of spring stuff, a lot of yard decor and just sometimes even wall decor. But it was also good high quality brands. But I loved the sell through rate of the Christmas stuff. That I wanted to make sure that I secured that first, but I did make a mistake. I should have bought more of the spring stuff just because I probably would have sold most of it already. And I do want to make a transition more to whatnot. And I do think that if you can play it by the seasons, that I probably should have just focused on that a little bit differently instead of buying a bunch of Christmas stuff in January.
You think, because you got quite a bit of money on it in that stuff, and Whatnot is notoriously, it's known that you can make a lot of sales in an hour or two, but you're not going to get anywhere near retail typically in those Whatnot auctions, from my understanding. Are you worried that you put that kind of money into that inventory and it may not bring the return you need out of putting 15, 16 grand out?
Yeah, that's the same reason that I wouldn't take it to the flea market. Is I paid about 1/5 of what it sells for on eBay, and I think if I was to throw that on Whatnot or take it to a flea market, that it's just not going to bring anywhere close to that retail price. I think if you wanted to do a Whatnot show, you're going to probably break even or lose money until people figure out who you are and that you're offering good deals. But I think that's a risk and an investment that a lot of people have taken that's really paid off. And I think that I need to start doing that though, just because even if the first couple shows were completely break even, I think it's important to keep pushing forward with that because around Christmas time, if I still had that stuff left, I think it would be bringing closer to the retail prices that it would bring on eBay.
We were talking about putting that kind of money out and people being upset with you sharing some of the secrets of the buying the machinist tools and the industrial stuff. What a lot of people don't realize, that industrial stuff, it sells and it sells for a lot of money, and people see the big flashy, like this piece sold for $1,500 and this piece sold for $500. But that stuff doesn't sell till some factory has a machine break and then they need that part and then they're willing to go buy it. It isn't like it's something that just sells every single day, and you're putting out 10, 15, $20,000 a lot, and you're definitely going to see a huge return on your investment, but you got to wait for it. And the people upset with you for sharing those secrets, I think a lot of the people watching you on Facebook don't have 15 grand to maybe wait 5 years to see the full return, which is another reason I think it's silly to be upset with you for sharing secrets, because the average person doesn't have 15 grand to go, one, have the knowledge or the money to go buy and then sit on the 15 grand or 20 grand and wait for the return. So obviously that's your style. And since you have so much of it, you're making it up in cash flow, but to get into it, I just don't think it's realistic for people to be upset with you for giving away some of those kind of secrets on Facebook.
I mean, I've been doing this type of stuff for 10 years, and the growth has been incredibly slow. I mean, really, it wasn't until a couple years ago when I started to make actual true money, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think if I had the money to spend 15,000 10 years ago on those same types of lots and be patient, I would be further ahead. But I started with $500 like most people do, and I was buying, basically like the bucket lot that you won. And a lot of that is just, it's going to take a year or 2 years to sell, and you're going to maybe make, a lot of people would make 5 or 10 times their money on it. But if it takes a year or two, throughout that period, you didn't really have the money to reinvest elsewhere because it sells so slowly.
People don't have the space to store it. Like, you have a building that you have, I forget the number. You made a video on Facebook doing the tour and how much you paid for your building. I lease space, so I have the room to do long tail items like parts and stuff where you have to wait for the right buyer. Your average person getting into this game maybe have a closet or a spare room in their house. So them hopping into long tail items right away probably isn't going to work for them. So like I said, I don't think you're giving away any secrets that it's going to ruin your business or anyone else's business, just because it's hard to play in the long tail game.
I mean, I'm sure there will be new competition. I actually have been messaging a guy that lives about an hour east of here that ended up doing one of the main auctions that I do just down the road. But he didn't spend, like you said, he didn't spend 10,000 or $15,000. I think he spent just a few $100s, but uh, and what he bought isn't typically something that I would have bought. So it's I almost encourage the competition. I mean, I don't want prices to get more expensive, but I put out a post a couple weeks ago where the auction that I'm doing already has 30 to 40,000 people. Now, not all of them are resellers, but a couple more people into that sale isn't going to change really anything compared to where it's already at with 40,000 people.
And for every new bidder that's joining, maybe because they saw your content, there's people like your buddy who's in the machining world who couldn't make it work. Just it takes a special kind of person to work for yourself, because you're the only one that's there to hold yourself accountable to. And you don't have a boss to ride you, or it's some kind of point system. Like, when I worked in a factory, if I missed 8 days of work and got 8 points, I got fired. On this business, I can miss 8 days and I'm not fired, but I'm not going to make any money. So it takes a special kind of person to hold yourself accountable to keep going. And not everyone's going to do that. So for every two people you encourage, there's going to be two people who fail out or more. And it's just going to be a wash in the end. So, like I
Well, and
said, I don't
like I
think
say, with
it's anything
with
to get upset
storage,
over.
there were storage wars came out, and prices they went sky high after storage wars came out. But like I say to people all the time, that has settled down a lot, and you can find storage units today for a couple $100. They're 10 by 15s, 10 by 20s that are full of good merchandise. There's still a lot of work there, but that's why the prices went back down, is because people started realizing this is a lot of work. There's a lot of trash. And it also takes a lot of work just to start making your money back, uh, just because you're dealing with so much trash or slow moving items or broken items. So yeah, it all kind of ebbs and flows. And I think even if I was to maybe hurt the market with the industrial stuff, it's just like storage wars. It's gonna come back down.
We get I probably get a DM a week asking if I buy storage units. And I have bought storage units. I've probably bought 20 in my lifetime. Every single time I was excited when I won it, and every single time about halfway into it, I was mad that I bought it. Like, you end up throwing 85% of it away. Even if it's a good unit, you're still throwing 70% of it away because you get into totes, most of it's going to be household like pots and pans and just stuff that people need for their house that it's worth it for them because they made the initial investment to buy it. But as a reseller, you don't want someone's old pots and pans or their silverware, or even like you'll open a tote and there'll be olive oil and cooking oil and stuff that they saved because they need it for their next place. But most of the time, my bill at the dump is more than what I actually paid for the unit. And then you have the entire day in it. You're hot, sweaty, and nasty. The whole day you're spending pulling all that crap out of there and going to the dump. You're missing out on a day of listing and a day of shipping and a day of sourcing items that you wanted to buy and not hoping for a mystery item in the back that's going to make you money. And I just think the net return on your time is pretty low. So that's why I personally don't buy them. And I'm like you. I think people should start with auctions and buy the items that they know are going to sell and not get stuck with all the junk. So
Yeah, if you can try. I mean, I still think you can make money with all the other stuff, including storage auctions, if you're willing to put the work in. I mean, people are still making full-time wages by doing storage auctions, so I wouldn't totally, you know, say not to do them. If that's the only thing you have in front of you at the moment, I would say do it.
yes, oh, of course, I'm not saying don't do storage units. Having inventory to list is better than having no inventory to list.
Exactly. The last 2 storage units that I did were fantastic. Like, they were incredible units where I made 10 times my money, and they actually weren't that hard. But so you would think I would be out there doing more storage units, but I'm not. I realized that even doing what I do in my shop every day while listing machine tooling, it's more profitable than making 10 times my money on a lot of these storage units because of how much easier it is. I don't have to move a bunch of trash around. So yeah, you brought up a good point. It's even though they're profitable, still have other things that are more profitable.
Yeah, I've never lost money on a storage unit, but you got to have I think the secret in this business is having a hourly rate on your time, or maybe not a specific dollar amount, but have something in mind like, hey, if I'm sitting at the shop listing, I'm worth $100 an hour. So whatever I'm doing, unless it's a hobby or like, I know personally that garage selling is not the secret to getting ahead, but I love going garage selling. So I'm willing to understand that, like, hey, I'm not going to maybe probably make my $100 an hour out garage selling, but I'm willing to sacrifice it because I like doing it. But unless you really love digging through people's trash in the storage unit, your hourly rate is so low compared to other options out there, is kind of what I meant by it. But
Hard to make that $100 an hour. Yeah.
yes. And that's just like, I think we both have kind of we both agree that you should focus on higher dollar items. But for a new person, if you don't have the 50, 60, 100, $200 items, I'd rather you list $10 items than not list at all, kind of deal. So,
I agree. Yeah.
which I've kind like, I got in a real bad habit while I had employees for a few months where like I couldn't have them list the hard stuff like we were talking about because it's the more expensive the item is, a lot of times the harder it is, like especially the part specific stuff. So I got in a real bad habit of going to auctions and just buying it all and then loading the back in the trailer up and saying, list as much as you can. Like, so I have a lot of people are always amazed that I have like 7,500, 8,000 listings at all time, but there's probably 1,000 of them that eventually just going to get taken down when I have the time because I was just letting employees just here list 10 items an hour, try to keep it and just letting them hammer those at you, those easy listings and stuff sells, but it's just you can focus on the higher dollar stuff and put a higher value on your time. I think you're going to come out ahead.
Do you ever envision a time where you will have employees again?
I always say I'm not going to look for the perfect employee because I've been let down trying to do that. But if the perfect person just came up to me and said, hey, I want to work for you and I'm willing to do this for this, and it's something we agree on. I think if I ever do it again, I'd want to do it on a commission base where they can make some real money.
Yeah.
Because the last two I was paying as part time, that's $15 an hour, which isn't crazy money, but for a part time job where I didn't make you follow a set schedule and you could, once you were kind of trained, I let you just kind of work what you wanted. Thought that was fair, but the whole time they're listing on my phone because I let them use. Do you list on the app? Is that what you
Yeah,
use? Is the
I do.
so I list on the app. So I trained my employees to list on the app. The whole time they're listing, they're seeing my 90-day total right there on the eBay app, and they know they're only making $15 an hour. And one just had enough of like a drive to like saw what I was selling, and she's like, "I'm gonna go sell my own stuff." So I had that issue. The other one didn't have the drive to be worth her $15 an hour and had definitely didn't have the drive to go do it on her own. But so I feel like I do it on like a commission based where they could really make it worth their time and make enough money where they wouldn't want to leave once I got them trained. So
Yeah, I think the right person that could be really the best way to do it, where they see that if they just list more with you, that they could probably make more than starting their own business.
yeah, I've thrown around some numbers. I talked to one girl recently, but it didn't work out that I'd pay her a buck up front for everything she listed and then 15% when it sold. And I said, at those rates, you could come in here and make 100 grand a year just listing my stuff if you wanted to go hard at it. And I'd gladly pay the 100 grand on a commission, but she, it fell through. She didn't ended up taking she didn't end up taking the spot. So
How would you make that work though, where with the commission, how would you know what to pay that person off of what sells? Like, how do you keep that separate?
well, I do a little bit of consignment for, like I mentioned, my cousin in Vermont who sends industrial stuff my way. And then I have a couple people local. One guy, he loves to buy, but he can't sell on eBay anymore. And I sell for him. When I sell for them, I put their name in the SKU. So then when I go to print it, where when I go to the shipping label, I see their name in the SKU. And then I print what is it called? When you go to orders and look at order details with the breakdown of what you made after fees and everything, when
Yeah.
I go print the shipping label, I print that for them and it prints off in my printer. So then I have record of everything like my cousin sells or this guy sells. And then I take my percentage off that. So I'd probably do the same thing if I had an employee. I'd just I'd have them put their name in the SKU and that's how they'd get paid.
It sounds like a lot of bookkeeping though.
It is a pain in the butt. And that's why I don't go harder in the consignment world because there's plenty of people out there, especially if you guys listening at home. There's plenty of people who will give you 50% if you'd sell their stuff on eBay, but all that bookkeeping just added up and added up. And I kind of quit doing it except for a couple select few.
Yeah, that's tricky. I'd say no to consignments every single time,
Yeah,
unless you've
I'd
got something
say
that's 5 grand maybe.
yeah, I say no pretty much now unless you have something really awesome. So if you're gonna bring me like a $30 item, I'm like, I can go get a $30. I can go get all the $30 items I want. It's like it needs to be something special.
It needs to be twice as much as my best item that I currently have in my unlisted inventory, because if I've got a $500 item in my unlisted inventory, I wanna list that over your item that's $500 because I'll make more on that, so
Yes, absolutely. Uh, at the level I list at, it is kind of nice to get some higher end items because I move through them pretty quick. Like right now, I've been listing a ton of like brand new, like Red Wing and Georgia boots for a guy who he's the guy I was telling you about. He can't list on eBay anymore, but he loves going to auctions and he's pretty much bought out an entire boot store down where he lived that went out of business. So I've been selling a lot of those boots for like 130, 150, $160 a pop. And those are kind of nice to have because there's a lot of exact same models where I just take the pictures once and then I just redo the listing and change the size. So
right.
those are pretty convenient. Let's move into doing some Facebook and influencer stuff. When did you start doing that?
I think I did it about the same time as you. I think you maybe had your page before, but I didn't start taking it seriously until towards the end of November, I think it was. And yeah, I think I kind of think there was a time I think you and I both had 90 followers at the same time, which was I thought pretty cool.
I actually started my page like 4 or 5 years ago and I never posted on it. And then I started posting on it in November right around the same time, like, because it's something that I've always thought about doing. And then I chickened out, and then I thought about doing it, and then I chickened out, and I finally just said, okay, we're going in the quarter four. I'm going to start posting on Facebook and Instagram. What made you decide you wanted to start doing
Money.
it?
I no, I'll be honest. I saw you mention the other night. I think it was Harry Tornado was
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
influenced a little bit, but I saw a lot of the other people posting their earnings, and I thought the same thing was if I can make a couple bucks at it, just basically talking about what I'm doing, then why would you not do it? I think that's what Harry Tornado said is if you own any sort of business and you can just document what you do in a given day and make money on it, why are you not doing it? And that I was like, yeah, I need to do the same thing.
I know I was on a podcast the other night and they were talking about it and the one you brought up and everyone was being real coy and like, oh, the community and learning from each other. And I'm like, I want to be blunt. I want to make that Harry Tornado money. Like, and that and guys like Gary V. I don't know if you're familiar with Gary V. Or he's always talking about posting on social media and just, and whatever you're into, make content. It may not make money right away. And I'm not getting rich by any means, but I see some big numbers that some of these guys that what they're bringing in, and then all this time, and I'm sure you thought it yourself. You see all these guys making big dollars on social media in the resale world, and I thought of myself, and I'm sure you thought it. Like I sell more than those guys do. Like why don't I make content around it? Like I outsell all those guys who are making content around it. So I'm sure you kind of thought the same thing when you see some of the guys in the reselling.
I did, but then I quickly realized that it's a lot harder than it looks. Like you can't just flash your numbers and then have 100,000 followers. Like you still have to be a personality. You still have to be an educator. There's a lot more to it than just flashing big numbers or big purchases. It doesn't work that way. There was a time when I first started the page and everybody else that was starting pages in the fall last year were jumping quicker than I was. And I was like, maybe people just don't want to see this. And I never thought about giving up, but I really wondered like, why isn't this taking off? I was like, people are not excited about some guy in a warehouse that's talking about his Lamborghini parts. So there's a lot more that's involved in it to be successful than than just talking about a few things here and there. Like it's dedication, just like reselling is.
I tell people this, everything I've ever done good in life, I've done it with consistency. So I'm consistent with my eBay and my reselling, and I work at it every single day. And I try to be present and post daily and content. And it's, for a couple of guys who just started in November, I think we're probably ahead of the pace compared to some people. And, we're roughly about 6 months in. And I think we're ahead of the pace that a lot of people are at 6 months in and they're making content. And I think just showing up daily and being consistent is a big part of that.
I agree. I agree 100%. As you post even more consistently than me, but I think if you can just if at first especially if you can just post 3 or 4 times a day, it really doesn't matter what it is. I mean, I do agree to some extent that there needs to be a little bit of substance there. Like if you're constantly just going to McDonald's and posting the picture of the
Yeah.
meal you got, that I don't think that's going to work because there's millions of people that are already doing that. You do need to show a little bit of something different just to stand out somewhat.
I think the if people get value from following you, like I I know you get the DMs and I get the DMs because usually your name is mentioned. I get DMs weekly saying, "You and Flip Fusion have made me money. I've learned so much from you guys," and your name's in a lot of those DMs that I get from people. So I think people need to find value, and if you can teach and help somebody make money, you're going to people are going to follow you because they see value in following you and they want those dollar signs too. Like obviously, just some people like me and you are willing to admit it. The reason we started making content is, yeah, I'd like to make a little bit of money someday too. So
Isn't that why we do anything though? Like
yeah,
if you go out and you pour concrete all day, like you're not showing up. I mean, maybe some people out there love pouring concrete, but you're showing up for a paycheck.
a little bit about scrap before we wrap this up. You make a lot of scrapping content, which I think is a brilliant idea on your part because you're kind of getting a reseller crowd and you got a little bit of a scrapping crowd, which so you can kind of get two genres on your page. Uh, what's your biggest scrap score you've ever had?
Man, some of the ones recently were probably the biggest ones. Maybe some of the carbide ones though. I've had some carbide ones that have paid, like I had a sale last fall that was for $16,000, but that wasn't just something that I purchased at an auction. That was a collection of scrap pieces from like many, many years. But the copper deal back in April was a big one where I profited over $4,000, with just a little bit of work. Some people would claim that it was a lot of work, but uh, no, that one was pretty impressive. Even the aluminum bathtub feet that I did recently was pretty big. But the carbide, that's been big. I probably made more money on scrap carbide this year than the copper and aluminum combined, but it's not any one just big purchase. It's just kind of a collection of the stuff from certain auctions here and there.
You got any big scrap projects in the works? Anything you have hidden that you're gonna be scrapping here soon?
I really don't. I do have another load of non-ferrous material that I'm gonna take to the scrapyard soon. A lot of copper and aluminum. The video I did with going to the scrapyard with just some steel has done really well, and I have other people want to see more of that. So no, the scrap stuff is just kind of random. I don't really have anything on the back burner. It's just when I'm scrolling through auctions and I see stuff that, I'm going to resell, I make sure to look at everything else too because a lot of it's not resell, it's scrap worthy stuff and I try to make money wherever I can.
I find it very educational because when you're self-employed and you're in this business, getting different income streams is can be huge. And pretty much if you're in resale and you go buy auctions, a lot of times, not in your style auctions a lot of times, but when you go to those estate auctions, a lot of times the auctioneer is going to make you take more than just the one item you want. A lot of times you got to clear the table. And all these years, I've thrown away so many like toasters or worthless circular saws, like some old ones that are only sell on eBay for like $8. And I think it's opened my eyes to like, I've probably thrown away several $1,000s worth of scrap in my dumpster and to start collecting a little bit of that and taking in a load every once in a while and getting a couple $100, you know? So I think it's really opened my eyes to how much scrap I just throw away in this business on regular. Or if you're the storage unit guy, you're definitely getting stuff to throw away. And I bet I've taken truckloads of stuff that I could cut the copper cord off or, you know, so I think it's opened my eyes to like, you know, not crazy money because but you know, couple $100 here and there, you know, of taking a load in. So
I think it's important too because if you start there where you fill up a trash can full of copper wire, that's how we all started scrapping for the most part. But it can stem to much bigger things like, once you learn how to do scrap and what type of scrap to look for, then you start going to the auctions like I do and seeing bathtub feet where there's pallets and pallets of them, or the copper wire where I can't believe that I was able to pick up all that up for $2,600 when I could literally just take it to the scrapyard. So, if you can educate yourself on the scrap early, it might stem to much bigger things down the road.
and to people watching this, it does seem intimidating going to the scrapyard because I went a few weeks ago and made a video because my washer and dryer went out, or my dryer went out, and I ended up getting a new washer and dryer. So I made a video of me taking my washer and dryer, and then a couple just random junk things that were going to get thrown away from that accumulated from reselling. And you go in there, and a lot of times you don't know where to go because there's piles over here. But just ask. In my experience at my local yard, the people were nice and they pointed me in the direction where to go, and I just prayed I didn't get a flat tire while I was there.
Just with anything that's intimidating, just take it slow and ask people like wherever you go and whatever you're doing, even with these big auctions, these big industrial facilities. Like I'm looking at one today that's 325,000 square feet. Like that building is going to be intimidating, but just take it easy. Once you get in the door, ask people, tell them what's going on. And that goes with the scrapyard. Say, hey, this is my first time. What, I don't know the protocol, I don't know the procedure, help me on what to do. And people for the most part are very friendly and very helpful.
Yeah, and at the scrapyard, they want your scrap because that's how they make money. So the easier they make it for you to, they're making money on the scrap, so they're gonna try to help you out as much as they can because they want you to keep bringing back your scrap because that's how they make money.
Exactly. Now some of the employees might not think about that so much, and they might be a little bit more rude, but yeah, if you can talk to the right people, they're going to treat you well.
I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy and you got to get listing and shipping and stuff for the day. Where can people find you? Are you just on Facebook now, or have you started that YouTube page everyone's trying to get you to start?
No, I did start the YouTube page, and I did do TikTok as well. The TikTok page is doing really well, but the YouTube is very slow. Like
I've
literally videos that have gotten millions of views on Facebook and TikTok. I have one that has 33 views on YouTube, and I'm like, I don't understand this, but it's slow.
I'm experiencing the same thing on YouTube with my stuff. Uh, the stuff that does really well on Facebook is not getting the same views on YouTube as it does on Facebook, and TikTok's kind of in between the two for me. My Facebook's my number one, TikTok's kind of in the middle, and then YouTube's way down. But from my understanding, YouTube makes you pound away at it for a year or so before they start really pushing your stuff out there. So,
I'm
where
definitely seeing, yeah, yep,
is it Flip Fusion on everything?
correct. It is.
Okay, we'll go follow Flip Fusion on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube. And thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Sean, and good luck with your new podcast.
Thank you.
Sean's Fine Show. Sean's Fine Show.